married the love of his life on Saturday. By Tuesday, he was dead. No signs of struggle, no goodbye note, just a lifeless groom and a trail of secrets. What happened in those 3 days? And did the bride know more than she claimed? The sun cast a golden hue over the lush gardens of the Windsor estate, where white roses bloomed in perfect symmetry with the ivory drapes that lined the aisle. Daniel stood at the altar, eyes fixed on the entrance, heart pounding with anticipation. At 29, he had built a promising career, earned respect in business circles, and now he was marrying Amaka, the love of his life. Guests whispered in admiration, watching as Amaka glided toward him in a shimmering white gown that seemed to carry all the hopes of their future. The couple exchanged vows with tearful smiles, sealing a love story many envied. The reception was lavish. From the gourmet menu to the live band flown in from Lagos, no expense was spared. Daniel and Amaka danced like no one was watching, their chemistry undeniable. Speeches flowed, laughter echoed, and by nightfall, the couple departed amidst a shower of rose petals and camera flashes. To everyone present, it was the perfect beginning to a perfect union. But beneath all the glitter and smiles, something else lurked. Something only a few people noticed, subtle glances exchanged, a bridesmaid's forced smile, and an elderly man's stiff posture in the corner. While the guests toasted to forever, fate quietly began its countdown. The newlyweds checked into a luxurious beachside resort, tucked away on the serene coast of Calabar. Amaka squealed with joy when she saw the private pool, while Daniel, always calm and composed, just smiled, watching her with soft eyes. For the next 2 days, they lived in a bubble of passion and peace. Breakfasts in bed, long walks along the shore, and whispered promises of a life filled with adventure. But on the third morning, something changed. Daniel received a phone call that made his face go pale. He stepped onto the balcony to take it, and when he returned, the warmth in his eyes had dimmed. Amaka asked him what was wrong, but he brushed it off. "Just a work thing," he said. But his hands trembled slightly when he poured his coffee. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept checking his phone, pacing the room, eyes darting toward the door as if expecting someone. Amaka watched him silently, concern growing in her chest. She didn't know it yet, but something Daniel had buried in his past was clawing its way into the present, and it wasn't coming alone. The morning sun had barely risen when a piercing scream echoed through the hallway of the honeymoon suite. Hotel staff rushed to room 402, where Amaka stood barefoot, eyes wide, her white nightgown stained with something darker. Inside, Daniel lay sprawled on the floor, cold, still, and unmistakably lifeless. His skin had turned an eerie shade of gray, and his lips were slightly parted as if he had tried to call for help. A shattered glass lay beside him, its contents soaked into the carpet. Security sealed off the room immediately. Within an hour, detectives from the local precinct were on the scene, asking questions that Amaka could barely process. She was in shock, trembling, her voice cracking with disbelief. "We just got married. He was fine last night," she whispered over and over. But one detective, a woman named Ifeoma, noticed something peculiar. Daniel's phone was missing. His wallet was untouched, and there were no signs of forced entry. But something about the room didn't feel right. It wasn't just a death. It was a silence too loud, a peace too staged. Daniel's perfect honeymoon had ended in tragedy, but for some, it was just the beginning of a bigger mystery. The news broke like wildfire. Groom found dead 3 days after wedding. Every blog, radio show, and gossip page in the city had something to say. Friends were stunned. Church members were speechless. But as the grief poured in, so did the suspicion. How does a healthy young man die without warning, right after a grand celebration? And why wasn't Amaka shedding tears like everyone expected? Back at the estate, Daniel's mother, Mama F, sat silently in her living room, fingers clasped tightly in prayer, but her heart burned with doubt. "Something is not right," she muttered. "That girl, I never trusted her smile." Meanwhile, Amaka was being questioned at the police station. Her story was clear. Daniel had trouble sleeping, took something for his nerves, and she found him dead in the morning. But Detective Ifeoma wasn't convinced. No medical history, no autopsy yet, no toxicology report, and no phone, she said aloud, scanning her notes. Someone's hiding something. Outside, reporters swarmed. Inside, secrets were starting to crack. And in the middle of it all stood Amaka, hailed as a grieving widow, but slowly becoming something else in people's eyes, the prime suspect. 3 days after Daniel's body was discovered, the official autopsy report arrived at the precinct. Detective Ifeoma skimmed through the pages slowly, her brow furrowing deeper with each line. Cause of death, acute poisoning, likely ingested. No sign of illness, no prior medical condition. It confirmed what she had suspected. This wasn't a natural death. Someone had deliberately ended Daniel's life. But who? And why? She glanced at the toxicology breakdown, a rare compound, hard to trace, but lethal in small amounts. Not the kind of thing you stumble across by accident. It had to be planned. Her mind returned to Amaka, calm, composed, cooperative, but almost too perfect. The girl didn't cry at the station. She didn't ask to see the body again. And yet, she had no known motive. No big life insurance. No evidence of abuse. No affair, or so it seemed. Later that evening, Ifeoma visited the hotel again, this time with a forensic tech. As they swept the suite, something caught their attention, a wine bottle tucked behind the minibar. It hadn't been logged in the original scene report. Fingerprints were smudged, but inside the bottle, traces of the same compound found in Daniel's blood. Now they had a connection, and possibly a murder weapon. The case had shifted. This wasn't just a tragic death, it was a calculated killing. And the clock was ticking to find the one who did it. Daniel's funeral was a quiet storm. The white canopy, the mourners dressed in black, the choir humming low hymns, it all felt heavy, unreal. Amaka sat in the front row, wearing a black veil that covered most of her face. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. Her silence was loud. The guests whispered behind folded fans and shaded eyes. She looks too calm. Did you hear what they are saying? Poison, they say. But what truly shook the ceremony wasn't the whispers. It was the presence of a stranger. A tall man in a grey suit, face unfamiliar, standing at the very back. He didn't join the prayers. He didn't take off his sunglasses. He simply watched Amaka, closely, deliberately, until Mamaref noticed him and nudged her sister. "Who is that man?" she whispered. "He doesn't look like his from our side." After the service, as Daniel's casket was lowered into the earth, the man disappeared just as quietly as he had come. No one caught his name. No one saw which car he left in. But Detective Ifeoma, who had attended in plain clothes, saw enough. She had learned to trust her instincts. Something about that man, and his gaze, felt off. Maybe the answers they needed didn't lie with Amaka alone. Maybe someone else had been watching all along. Detective Ifeoma sat in her office, the photo of the mysterious funeral guest pinned to the board behind her. It was a blurry capture from a mourner's phone, but it was enough. Facial recognition flagged a name within minutes. Kelvin Anuora, a former associate of Daniel from university days, with a brief criminal record for fraud that had mysteriously been sealed years ago. Curious, she dug deeper. Turns out, Kelvin and Daniel had started a small tech startup back in school, and then suddenly parted ways after a major falling out. Meanwhile, Amaka was back at her parents' house, shielded from the press, but haunted by shadows. Her phone buzzed constantly, sympathy messages, media calls, strangers calling her names. She turned it off and stared at the wall. In her hands, she held a crumpled letter Daniel had once written but never mailed. She'd found it in his jacket the day before the wedding. The words were sharp, unlike the sweet man she'd known. "If anything happens to me, look at my past. I made enemies, and one of them is patient." She hadn't understood it then, but now, she couldn't stop thinking about it. She remembered the strange call Daniel took on their honeymoon. The tension in his voice, the fear in his eyes. Someone had come back to settle a score. And though she was now the one under suspicion, Amaka began to wonder if she had been a pawn in something far more dangerous. Kelvin Anuora didn't plan to show up at the funeral, but something pulled him there. Guilt, revenge, closure. He wasn't sure. What he did know was that Daniel had wronged him. Years ago, they had built a promising app together. Kelvin's idea, Daniel's funding. But when investors came knocking, Daniel had cut Kelvin out, changed the company name, and made millions. Kelvin lost everything, even spent time in police custody for a scam he didn't commit. He never forgave him. Detective Ifeoma found Kelvin at a modest hotel in town. He didn't run. He sat calmly as she asked questions. "Did you poison Daniel?" she asked directly. He laughed bitterly. "If I wanted Daniel dead, it wouldn't have taken me 10 years to do it," he said. But his alibi for the night of Daniel's death was weak. He claimed to be alone, watching TV, with no witnesses. Back at the station, Ifeoma replayed Daniel's last known calls. One stood out, a 1-minute call made at 11:47 p.m., the night before he died, to a contact saved as DS, but the number was no longer active. Who was DS? What was discussed? As pieces of Daniel's past began resurfacing, so did doubts about his picture-perfect life. Maybe the enemies weren't just outside. Maybe the poison didn't come from a bottle alone, but from years of betrayal, buried secrets, and ties that were never truly severed. Amaka sat across from Detective Ifeoma in a quiet interrogation room. No cuffs, no lawyers, just two women separated by suspicion and silence. "We found poison in the wine bottle," Ifeoma began. "Same compound that killed your husband." Amaka's lips tightened. "I didn't poison Daniel," she said firmly. "I loved him." "Then help me understand." He was nervous, paranoid. He died next to a shattered glass. His phone vanished. And now we know he called someone, DS, just hours before his death. Does that name mean anything to you? Amaka hesitated. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled a piece of paper from her purse. "This is from his journal." He wrote the letters DS in the corner, over and over. "I thought it was a business deal. I didn't ask questions. Maybe I should have." The detective took the paper, scanned it. Something about the loops and pressure in the writing told her this wasn't just a note. It was a cry for help. Outside the room, tension mounted. The media painted Amaka as a black widow. Daniel's mother had stopped speaking to her. Her in-laws wanted answers she couldn't give. But behind Amaka's eyes, Ifeoma saw fear, not guilt. Fear of something, or someone, closing in. If Amaka wasn't the killer, then the real murderer was still out there, and they were watching every move. Detective Ifeoma's investigation took a sharp turn when she stumbled upon a series of encrypted messages on Daniel's old tablet, retrieved from his office. With the help of a tech expert, the messages were decrypted. They were romantic, passionate, and they weren't from Amaka. The sender signed each one with the initials, DS. Digging deeper, Ifeoma uncovered a hidden email thread between Daniel and a woman named Dora Sarni, a corporate lawyer he had met during a tech conference the year before. Dora was beautiful, intelligent, and dangerously charming. The messages painted a picture of an affair that was more than physical. Dora had once threatened to ruin everything if Daniel walked away. His last reply, dated 2 weeks before the wedding, read, "I'm done, Dora. I'm marrying someone who brings me peace." When Ifeoma tracked Dora down, she was living quietly in Abuja, too quietly. Her LinkedIn was inactive. No recent photos online. And when the detective called the number linked to the DS contact, it rang. Then cut. No voicemail. No answer. Back at the precinct, Ifeoma laid out the new board, Amaka, Kelvin, Dora, all with motives. But only one had the initials Daniel tried to warn about. Only one had a reason to make sure his marriage didn't last a week. The story was no longer about a grieving widow. It was about the woman Daniel left behind, and what she was willing to do to never be forgotten. It was a rainy Tuesday evening when Amaka finally opened Daniel's old briefcase. It had been sitting in the corner of their shared closet since the honeymoon, untouched. Something about it scared her, as if it still carried the weight of his last days. But with suspicion closing in and her heart aching for answers, she found the strength to unlock it. Inside were files, business contracts, receipts, and a flash drive. With shaking hands, she plugged it into her laptop. It contained only one video file. She clicked play. Daniel appeared on screen, seated at his office desk. His eyes were tired, voice low. "If you're watching this," he began, "it means something has happened to me." Amaka froze. "I made a mistake years ago. Got involved with a woman I couldn't control. Dora. I tried to end things, but she said if I ever married someone else, I'd pay for it. I didn't believe her, until the threats started again." He paused, glancing over his shoulder. "This isn't about Amaka. If anything happens, don't let them blame her. Look at Dora. Look at what she's capable of." Tears streamed down Amaka's face as the video ended. The man she thought she knew had been carrying secrets. Painful, dangerous ones. She forwarded the video to Detective Ifeoma immediately. Now, the case was no longer built on guesses. Daniel had spoken from beyond the grave, and his final words pointed to a woman who had disappeared just when everything began to unravel. Detective Ifeoma wasted no time. Armed with Daniel's video testimony, she secured a warrant for Dora Sani's arrest. But when her team arrived at Dora's Abuja apartment, they found the place stripped bare. Furniture gone. Phone disconnected. Neighbors said she hadn't been seen in over a week. One woman remembered seeing a moving truck late at night. "She left in a hurry," the woman said. "Didn't even say goodbye." Every trace of Dora had been wiped clean, like she'd planned her disappearance months in advance. Ifeoma checked flight records, border logs, even hotel registries, but there was nothing. It was as if Dora had evaporated into thin air. But the detective knew better. People like Dora didn't vanish, they reinvented. Meanwhile, the media shifted their gaze. With the leaked video, Amaka's name was slowly being cleared. The public started asking new questions. Why hadn't the police found Dora first? Why wasn't she mentioned in the wedding? Who else knew about her? Back at the station, a call came in from a burner number. A distorted voice delivered a chilling message. "Stop digging, or you'll end up like Daniel." Ifeoma listened in silence. The line went dead. Daniel had been silenced. Now the killer was threatening to silence the truth. But Ifeoma wasn't the type to back down. If anything, the chase had just become personal. Detective Ifeoma sat alone in her dimly lit office, the anonymous threat replaying in her mind. The voice had been altered, but there was one clue, a faint background hum, like an engine or generator. She passed the audio to forensics, hoping for a match. Meanwhile, she revisited Daniel's financial records. Something wasn't adding up. Over 8 million Nigerian nairas had been transferred from Daniel's private account to an unknown company just days before the wedding. The company, DS Global Consulting, a ghost firm with no registered address, no online presence, and one listed director, Dora Sani. Now it was clear, Daniel had tried to buy his way out. He must have paid Dora off, hoping she'd disappear for good. But instead of walking away, she took the money and planned his death anyway. As Ifeoma pieced the puzzle together, Amaka received a strange package at her family home. No name, no return address. Inside was a flash drive and a short note. "You deserve to know the whole truth. Play me." She inserted the drive into her laptop and clicked the video. It was Dora, beautiful, calm, and composed. "Hello, Amaka," she said, smiling coldly. "You married him, but you never really knew him. You see, Daniel wasn't innocent. He destroyed lives, mine included. You think you're the victim, but so was I." Amaka's blood ran cold. Dora wasn't just running. She was taunting, and she had more to say. The video continued. Dora's eyes locked onto the camera, unblinking. "I met Daniel when I was 25, she began. "He was charming, brilliant, and dangerous. He promised me love, a future. Instead, he used me. Took my legal contacts to secure dirty deals. When I pushed for a stake in his company, he cut me out and painted me as unstable." Amaka sat frozen, watching as Dora's voice hardened. "He didn't just walk away. He erased me. People stopped returning my calls. My career collapsed. I lost everything. So yes, I followed him. I knew when he met you. I knew when he proposed. And I warned him, You can't bury the past without it digging itself back up. She paused, then smirked. I didn't poison him myself, but I made sure someone did. I'm not stupid, Amaka. People like me don't get justice, we take it. The screen cut to black, but not before one final message appeared in red text. You were married to a man with blood on his hands. Don't think yours will stay clean for long. Shaken, Amaka ran to her phone and called Ifeoma. The detective arrived an hour later, took the drive, and watched the video silently. It's not just revenge, she said. This woman is playing a bigger game. She's not done yet. Now they had a face, a motive, and a confession, though not in court. But Ifeoma knew this wasn't the end. It was only the next move in a deadly game Dora had started long ago. Detective Ifeoma handed the video over to the cybercrime unit. Within hours, they traced the upload location, not to Abuja or even Nigeria, but from a VPN exit node in Côte d'Ivoire. Dora had gone international. She's using ghost accounts, layered encryption. This isn't just a scorned lover, the lead analyst muttered. She's trained, or working with someone who is. Meanwhile, Amaka found herself haunted by more than grief. Anonymous messages began slipping into her inbox. Some were cryptic. He lied to all of us. Others were cruel. You married a killer. What does that make you? She shut off her phone and started journaling everything she could remember. Daniel's moods, the strange call on the honeymoon, things he said in passing that once felt normal, now loaded with meaning. She remembered something Daniel once whispered in his sleep. The money's hidden. They'll never find it. At the time, she had brushed it off. Now, it felt like a clue. If Daniel had been hiding assets or paying someone off, maybe the key was in his study. She begged Ifeoma for access. Back at Daniel's office, they found a locked drawer. Inside, a second phone, burner style, no fingerprint, no ID. But when powered on, one text sat unread. Payment received. Next step is yours. DS. That was the missing link. Daniel had paid Dora to make a problem disappear. But maybe that problem wasn't her. Maybe Daniel wasn't the only one with enemies. And maybe Dora was just the beginning. Detective Ifeoma stared at the burner phone screen. The message was only 6 words long, but it raised 1,000 questions. Next step is yours. DS. If Daniel had paid Dora, what exactly had he asked her to do? And who, or what, was the real target? Ifeoma cross-checked Daniel's business history and discovered something curious. 2 weeks before the wedding, he had withdrawn a large sum from a joint investment account tied to an old silent partner, Chief Alaba Olabai, a powerful figure in the oil sector. Rumors had always swirled about Chief Alaba's criminal connections, but nothing had ever stuck. Daniel had once referred to him as the devil you keep on speed dial. Could Daniel have paid Dora not just to silence a personal threat, but to help remove a business one? If so, maybe Daniel wasn't the victim everyone believed. Maybe he had tried to play puppeteer and got tangled in his own strings. Back at Amaka's house, she found a strange envelope slipped under the front door. Inside was a newspaper clipping from 3 years ago. Whistleblower in Olabai oil scandal found dead. On the back, scribbled in red ink, your husband knew everything. Now you do too. Amaka's hands trembled. Was this a warning, or a threat? Whatever game Daniel had been playing, he wasn't playing it alone. And now that he was gone, the pieces were still moving, dragging Amaka deeper into a war she didn't start, but might not survive. Detective Ifeoma knew she was walking into a lion's den when she scheduled a meeting with Chief Alaba Olabai. The man was untouchable, wealthy, well-connected, and rarely seen in public. But when she arrived at his estate, he welcomed her with a cold smile and a cup of tea he never touched himself. I heard you're reopening old wounds, he said, voice deep and measured. Daniel's death was tragic. He was ambitious, sometimes too ambitious. Ifeoma studied him closely. What was your last conversation with him about? Alaba chuckled. He asked to be bought out. Said he wanted a clean start before his marriage. I told him no one leaves clean. The detective left with no confession, but she didn't need one. Alaba's message was clear. Daniel had tried to leave dirty business behind, and it may have cost him his life. But Ifeoma was sure of one thing now. Dora wasn't working alone. She was tied to something much bigger. That night, Amaka received another message, this time via email. It contained a video clip, security footage. Daniel, 2 nights before his wedding, meeting Dora in a dim restaurant. Their conversation had no audio, but their body language was intense. At one point, Dora slid an envelope across the table. Daniel hesitated, then nodded and took it. Attached was one chilling caption. "He planned everything, including you." Amaka closed her laptop slowly. She was no longer just grieving. She was unraveling a man she thought she knew, one lie at a time. And somewhere out there, Dora was watching her reactions, move by move, like a twisted game of chess. The next morning, Amaka couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. At first, it was just her imagination. But then she noticed the same grey car parked down the street. Twice. Then again at the grocery store. She called Ifeoma immediately, and the detective dispatched a plainclothes officer to quietly tail the vehicle. While the police tracked the surveillance car, Ifeoma returned to Daniel's office for one last sweep. In a dusty file cabinet beneath tax records, she found an envelope labeled contingency plan. Inside was a flash drive and a torn map with markings on an industrial site outside Lagos, an abandoned factory Daniel had quietly purchased 6 months ago. The flash drive contained blueprints and export records, evidence of illegal offshore money transfers tied to Olubai Holdings. It was a ticking bomb. If released, it could ruin powerful men. Daniel had compiled it all, but never sent it. Why? Back at the precinct, the officer following the grey car called in. The driver had pulled into a secluded hotel, met with a woman in a cap and oversized hoodie. The description matched Dora. She was still in the country. As the pieces fell into place, Ifeoma realized the truth. Daniel had been blackmailing the same people he feared. Dora, Olubai, maybe others. And now, Amaka had inherited all the secrets he left behind, making her a threat to people who had killed for far less. The factory wasn't just a property. It was a vault, and whatever was hidden there might be worth dying for. The abandoned factory loomed at the edge of the city like a forgotten monument. Its rusted gates groaned open as Detective Ifeoma and 2 officers stepped inside, flashlights cutting through thick layers of dust and silence. Amaka waited in a parked car nearby, her nerves taut. She had insisted on coming, convinced that this place held the final piece of the puzzle Daniel never got to explain. Inside, behind a false wall in what looked like an old storage room, they found a locked metal case, bolted to the floor. It took the officers nearly an hour to crack it open. What they found inside wasn't money, but something more explosive, a collection of documents, hard drives, and voice recordings. Names, dates, account numbers, all tied to an international laundering scheme involving major business figures, including Chief Olubai and Dora Sani. The recordings were Daniel's voice, narrating every move, every betrayal, every risk he took to gather the information. His final message was chilling. If you're hearing this, I'm either gone or about to be. This evidence will protect Amaka. Don't let them bury the truth with me. Ifeoma felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just about a love gone wrong. Daniel had tried to bring down a criminal empire and paid the ultimate price. Outside, Amaka stared at the factory's walls, tears brimming in her eyes. For the first time, she realized Daniel hadn't just kept secrets. He had been fighting a war in silence. And now, without intending to, she had picked up where he left off. But someone out there still wanted her silenced. And now, they had more reason than ever to finish the job. By the time Ifeoma returned to the precinct with the factory evidence, her instincts screamed one word: danger. This wasn't just a murder investigation anymore. It was national. The names in Daniel's files weren't low-level criminals. They were politicians, bankers, oil executives. Powerful men with deep pockets and long shadows. As she scrolled through the digital documents, one page made her heart skip. It was a spreadsheet titled Contingency C1, Threat Elimination. A list of names. 5 in total. 2 were already dead, Daniel, and a whistleblower from 3 years ago. The third name stopped her cold, Amaka Daniel. She was next. Without wasting a second, Ifeoma called Amaka and ordered her into protective custody. Amaka resisted at first. They already think I'm guilty. Hiding will only make it worse. But Ifeoma didn't flinch. You won't clear your name if you're dead. That same night, A black SUV was spotted near Amaka's family home. The driver never came out, just Saturday, watching, waiting. Meanwhile, the last two names on the list remained untouched, but Ifeoma knew it was only a matter of time before they were targeted too. She needed to move fast, bring in the press, expose everything. But the department's top brass warned her to tread lightly. "These are big names," her supervisor warned. "Go too loud, and you'll disappear before your next shift." But Ifeoma had made up her mind. They had tried to silence Daniel. Now they were hunting Amaka. It was time the hunters became the hunted. 3 days was all it took for a dream to turn into a nightmare. But behind the love, the lies, and the silence, one question remains. Who truly killed Daniel, and why? The answers are just beginning to unfold. Don't forget to subscribe for the next twist, because this story is far from over.